So I had a simple question for you guys. Why do we feel bad about killing people or things in games, but not so bad when it's perceived that it's a simulation? Let me clarify a little bit more here. Some of you may not feel bad at all about murdering things in video games, and others may feel extremely guilty. What is that in us that makes us feel bad about killing human-like characters, even if they don't exist? My main example is Saints Row the Fourth. And at first, you're not in a simulation, so whatever you do is real life. And then once you go into the simulation, it's like a game inside of a game. Or the Matrix, if you will. So, do you feel less bad about murdering people in the simulation than outside of the simulation? Another great example is The Sims. When you're playing The Sims, you may not feel so bad if Johnny down the street gets murdered by electrocuting himself, or if you lock a Sim in a room and torture him to death, because they're not real people after all. It is just a simulation. So my question is, do you feel bad, more so, about murdering people in other games than you would a simulation or an FPS? The mindless drones that rush you in Call of Duty probably don't tug at your heartstrings when you murder them over and over again. There's probably 2,000 bodies making up the mountain that you're standing on by the end of the game. And same with Halo. Even though they're sentient aliens, I don't think anyone sheds a tear for that elite or grunt that blew himself up. So the question remains, why don't we feel bad for those, but we do feel bad for some? One good example is when you're playing a game and you're engrossed and a certain character dies. You know, another great example would be in Call of Duty when Soap died. It's like, oh man, Soap! You know, and Captain Price when you thought he was gonna die, or when you think these characters are gonna die, and you trip out. But let me remind you about that mountain of bodies just a little while ago. So that is what concerns me or troubles me with this question, because on one hand you feel extreme care, compassion, and concern for the avatars that you've grown attached to. For example, in The Last of Us, you may feel very attached to the people that you're playing with, while in BioShock Infinite you literally don't care what happens to Elizabeth because she can't die. A simple kind of mentality gets built around the characters depending on the situation and how it occurs and what happens to them, their vulnerability, etc., etc. Again, another great example would be the Walking Dead series. In the original Walking Dead, the Telltale episodes, not that horrendous first-person shooter, you are kind of overprotective of a fake character, and you'll do anything to protect that character. And yet, that character is not real, nor is that character any different from the pile of bodies that you just keep mounting as you play through certain games. So, do we feel bad because these pile of bodies that we're mounting up are evil? Is it the fact that they're bad guys, so they're supposed to die? I'm not supposed to feel bad about the random guy who had to sign up. One example I would like to cite is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. When you are being addressed by Jetstream Sam about the monotonous killing you're doing, he talks to you and tells you that the people that you've been murdering have lives. They have families, they have wives and kids. A lot of them are veterans who couldn't afford anything. They had to enlist. They had to do what they do right now because they had no other option. You know, it was between that or death, so they were at the end of their rope. And that tugs at your heartstrings psychologically and messes with you emotionally. But those games are kind of known for that. At least the Metal Gear series, messing with your head. But it still remains. Should you feel bad at all? It's digital information. These things don't exist. And the very definition of murder is one human killing another. If you really think about it, an alien or a robot or an animal can't exactly murder. So, murdering a digital avatar with another digital avatar shouldn't render any feelings, and yet it does conjure certain feelings when certain characters are killed. And yet those mindless drones that get murdered one after another seem to not invoke any feelings. But perhaps killing the boss behind them does. Another great example is BioShock Infinite, when you reach the end of certain sections and you confront the boss. Learning the truth, you might invoke an emotional response from that boss encounter. And it doesn't make sense because that very thing is the same as those digitally rendered characters that you have been murdering up until that point in time. And yet, we feel less bad about murdering people in the Sims, simulations, games like SimCity, where you demolish a block or invoke a disaster. It doesn't really bother you that 100,000, 10,000, 1 million people's lives were lost. But, God forbid, if anything happens to that little girl on The Walking Dead. Just a thought, and something I wanted to address to the gaming community. So feel free to comment in the section below. Feel free to let me know your opinion on this, and please share this with as many people as you can, because I'm interested in hearing the responses. Did I miss something? Is there a game that's an even better example? I mean, there's plenty of games throughout history that have done this. Chrono Trigger. You feel like you need to save the princess, your newfound colleague, and you may find an emotional response to that. And Earthbound, being so attached to your colleagues and fighting the final boss and feeling like there's absolutely no hope in the world, and just getting that emotional doubt and drowning in sorrow, honestly. And yet it's just digital. It is all digital. Another great one is Pokemon, with your Pokemon team members. Why wouldn't you use legendary Pokemon in Steamroll? Is it because you formed a bond between you and your Pokemon? Or is it simply because the game wouldn't be challenging? All compelling questions, and things that I just wanted to present to my subscribers, my Mavericks, my Pokemaniacs, and everyone else who is subscribed to me for various reasons. So I've been your host, Protomario, and I'm signing out, and please leave an interesting comment in the section below, and remind me of any games I have left out. Once again, guys, I'm Protomario, and I'm signing out. I hope you enjoyed that video, and now time for a public service announcement. I'm Protomario, leader of the Maverick Rebellion. Are you tired of giant YouTube partners never replying to any comments? Are you sick and tired of seeing large YouTube partners making great videos but never releasing any for weeks at a time? Are you tired of the mundane, continuous reality that keeps being pushed in your face? Copyrights, violations, videos being taken down on YouTube. Join the rebellion today and become a Maverick, where all of that will change for you. Just click the subscribe button. You'll be in great hands. I'm Protomario, and I approve this message. Mavericks unite.